hey, welcome back to Marriage Mondays. So happy that you're joining us either for the first time, or if this is your second, third, or even fourth time, that must mean that what you saw earlier drew you back in again. And I think it's gonna be worth your time wherever you're watching. It's gonna be really, really good. Today, we have the opportunity to sit with some incredible people. Real quick, if you don't know us, my name's Brandon Garland.
And my name's Maya Garland.
And we're happy you're here. And we get the opportunity today to sit down with one of our lead pastors, Pastor Mike Bowler, and his wife, Andrea Bowler. Welcome. Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, great to be here.
I think this is, I worked under you at Waxhaw for a little over 3 years.
Yep.
And one of the things I admire and respect about you is not only who you are as a pastor and leader, but the way that you're a husband and a father. So I think this is gonna be just a really good conversation. I've been looking forward to this one. So it's gonna be good.
We're really glad to be here with you all.
So exciting. Well, we just want to jump right in with, we'd love to know just how the two of you met and how you got married, just that whole journey, just in brief, from meeting to marriage. Just what did that look like for you guys?
So we met in high school. So our love blossomed from the row of flutes and trombones in the high school marching band. So it was, there are not many movies out there about love in the band, much more, football stories, but that was us, wasn't it, sweetheart?
It was us, yes.
So we met and...
Wait, can I just ask, are you trombone
Oh, yeah.
and flute? Is that the real two instruments that we're talking about
Yes.
here?
Yes,
Okay, no,
that's the real...
I didn't know if
I
it was
like, you think I play the flute?
I mean, there's got to be male flautists out there somewhere, so I don't know.
I'm sure there are, and I've now just offended all of them, but that's great.
If you're watching male flautists,
We love you.
We love you. Keep watching, okay?
So we met, and as we went through, our very first date was the junior-senior prom. So it was, I was decked out in my 1980s white tuxedo, and it was every bit the cheese that you might imagine it to be.
You look so handsome.
Oh,
And you look beautiful in your red dress. It was wonderful. So that was our first date, very first date. High bar set for that. And from there, we dated through the rest of high school, went off to college, dated there. And
Went to different colleges,
went to
but
different
still
colleges in
dated
the
long
Carolinas.
distance.
That's right. And then, somewhere around sophomore year, decided to go our own ways. And for the rest of college, we went our own way and dated some other people. And always, I remember I was in graduate school, preparing for ministry, and it came up in some class about, who do you want? It was a class on marriage therapy that I was taking. It was, who do you want to marry? Like, what's the ideal marriage partner? And every time we talked about it, Andrea came to mind. It was like, this is who I want to marry. And yet we hadn't spoken in years at that point. So I was home. We grew up in Central Florida. I was home on break, and I just showed up at her work one day, which could have gone one of two ways. Could have been either kind of creepy, stalky kind of thing, or could have been really good.
how did you know where she worked? That's
So it might be
That's for the follow-up
stalky
episode.
type of-
So I showed up and I said, hey, I'm in ministry now. And she goes, you're what? You're in ministry now? I'm like, yeah, I'm in ministry. And I was having my first sermon, and you came with your mom and your brother and saw my first sermon, and from there, you made me chase you for the better part of a year. Mm-hmm. And so we were dating and kind of on and off, and I just absolutely fell in love with my bride. It was just, I can see in my mind you getting out of that red sports car, and you'd just gotten off work, and you came, and I mean, y'all know what it's like when you're in love. It's just that your heart beats fast, and you're like, oh, it was an amazing season for us. And asked Andrea to marry me, and she said, you said I will. And we got married in 1994 and have been married, if I'm doing my math right, almost 30 years, 28 plus years now. We have been married. And it has been an amazing,
Yes.
an amazing, there have been seasons for sure. You know, when you've been married that long, there are seasons that are just fun and like, wow, this is amazing. And there are seasons that you remember you made a covenant with God and he's in your marriage. And it's not just based off of how much you love each other, because those feelings kind of go like this sometimes. But that commitment you make sees you through the hard seasons and to some just amazing joy.
Well, I find it interesting, part of your story being we're together in high school, we're together in college, kind of had a season where you decided like this relationship isn't going to continue right now. I think there's people watching who maybe are thinking like, I don't know, like I want to get married. I'm not currently dating somebody. I don't necessarily see a target in my mind of like, I'd want to go date this person. But it seems to me that part of your story is y'all didn't end the relationship thinking like, yeah, in a couple years we'll get back together. Like God just kind of sparked an idea in your mind, brought you back together. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think to encourage some people watching maybe, it's not always like, it doesn't always follow the trajectory that you think it would look like.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that you didn't think it would look the way that your story looked, at least how it started, and then there was a big pause in the middle that you assumed was not a pause, but it was an end. But God brought it together. And I just think that sometimes people can get into a place of being kind of disappointed about, I'd like to be in a season of dating someone that I could marry. I don't see who it's gonna be. You guys didn't see, I'm sure, in the moment, it working out the way that it did. And I think that can be just an encouragement for some people of maybe it won't look the way you thought it would look, but God is actually just really good and he has a way of working things together even in different ways than we might have thought. I think that's really beautiful. Let me ask you this, in 28 years of marriage, I imagine there's this verse, we've been asking this question in the past episodes. Proverbs talks about how relationships with each other is like iron sharpening iron. What would you maybe individually say is an area for you, Pastor Mike, being married to Andrea being married to Mike, like what's an area that you guys have noticed just being, maybe it was an area that was dull when you got married and now it's become sharp. Maybe it's an area that was already sharp, but it's gotten even sharper being in relationship with each other. But would just love to hear maybe an area or two from each of you all that the other has sharpened in your life.
Before we do that, would
Sure.
you mind if I go back to something you just said?
Absolutely.
Which was really good. You said that we had this season of dating and we were best friends and we dated, and then there was this time of pause that really was a time where we did go our separate ways and did not think we were going to get back together. And then we eventually did, and one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about that was how I went and dated several other guys during this time when we had broken up. And something that happened during that time, I would love to share because it was a really poignant moment.
Please.
So I dated a guy in particular for about 2 years, and we were getting somewhat serious. And the more time that I spent with him, the more I really wasn't sure. And about 2 years into it, I remember thinking, and he was very serious, he wanted us to get married, and I remember the moment when I thought to myself, you know, I'm not like a better person when I'm around him, and I think he's not the one, and I would actually be better if I was all alone and never married anybody than to say yes to him and to marry him. And so we broke up, and I didn't know what was going to happen. But what was very interesting was that only a few weeks later was when Mike just showed up in my office.
Wow.
But
And-
you said no, and I wasn't like I was in the offings
No,
and you could
you were
come.
not.
It was, we hadn't talked in 3 years
That's
at
right.
that point.
Wow.
And you said, I am better alone than I am with someone who's not the right one.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what I think is interesting about that story is a lot of people, I think, view romantic relationships through the lens of, well, I'm lonely, I want
Yes.
affection, I want someone to spend time with, all that stuff, which is all great stuff. But I think what your story kind of reveals, and I'm glad you told the story because I was supposed to ask a different question. Don't tell anybody watching. I was supposed to ask about if someone is still looking for, a potential spouse, what's a red flag or what's something to look for. And I feel like, I don't know if you did it on purpose, but your story answered the question, which is one of the things to do is, I think, don't just look through the lens of, is this person going to make me less lonely? Is this person going to be someone to go see a movie with on a Saturday night? It's really, am I the most full, like God-imagined version of myself with this person?
That's right.
And if the answer is no, even though I imagine this is not an easy decision, it is not worth continuing in that relationship if the fullest, best, most Christ-like you is not able to happen in that relationship.
That's so true. And I think one of the things that I pictured in my mind during that time when I was thinking this through was, what would it be like to get up every morning and see this person's face for the rest of my life? What would it be like to go to church every week with them? What would it be like to go to the grocery store with them? And I was just, the more and more I pictured this, the more and more I knew, no, this is not it.
Yeah, I'll say this with couples that I work with, that I have some indication that they may be getting married, not because they really want to be with each other the whole time, but because they're mitigating these circumstances of this person's good enough. They're good enough right now. So if I have an idea about this, I'll say, one of the things you all are agreeing to as a married couple is you're going to be together day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. You will wake up next to each other. You will brush your teeth next to each other. You will cook dinner next to each other. You will balance a checkbook. And if you love the person and you want to spend the rest of your life with them, then that prospect is an endearing prospect. It's one, but a lot of the research says that couples, particularly cohabitating couples, one of the partners has an idea they're not good with this. And instead of voicing that and standing like you didn't say, this isn't the right thing, not that y'all were cohabitating, but that that it's not great for us to be together if we don't really love each other and I'd rather be alone. They just kind of give in and they go along. And the research is clear. The divorce statistics are terrible for that population because somebody's just kind of given in. They've just kind of said, gosh, I give in. And the thing is that for most of us, I think that when you're in love, like I described, and it's just this wonderful thing, and you just, the other person just fills you up, and it's so wonderful. And that's how we, and we have moments like that even now. We'll stand in Harris Teeter, and I'll look, and Andre Brown's going, I'm like, oh, this is so great. And it's not always that way. I mean, there's seasons where it's not that way for both of us, I know. But it's wonderful with that. But the thing is that even though those seasons are there and it's so amazing and it's so wonderful, there are challenges that marriage presents over the years that really, what I think is not so much, do you just love being with the person? That's important, but it's, do you really want to be with that person? This is when I knew I wanted us to be together forever, was I wanted a front row seat to see what God was doing in her life. I wanted to be the one who got to be part of us being how Jesus made us, not just as a couple, but individually. And that's the part I love about being married, is I get a front row seat to see what God has done in you over the years. And it's just this, and get to play a small part in it. And it's this amazing thing of getting to have that impact on someone's life.
Wow.
And so I think, like, to sum it up, what both of y'all are saying is something that's great to look for, or like a quality in someone that you're dating or you're looking at as a potential spouse is, do I want to be with this person through everything, the hard times, through the waking up together, not just like the fun, exciting moments that are awesome, but that aren't everyday life. And I think a red flag that you guys sort of mentioned is like what you were talking about, Andrea, with, am I better alone right now than with this person, or does this person make me, the person that helped me become the person that God's made me to be. So I think that's really wonderful. And I want to circle back to the question that you had asked previously, which is an area over the last, you guys had said almost 30 years of marriage that really has been sharpened.
No,
That's
I
incredible.
can't.
Truly
Yeah.
incredible.
And we had dated 9 years before that, so
You guys are nearing 4 decades of life.
yes,
Together.
So how have we
awesome.
sharpened each
Yes.
other?
Yeah.
How have we impacted each other? I can say for me, and this is, and y'all know, in inviting a pastor on, I'm gonna somehow work in some part of the Bible.
Oh, we
here
expect
in
it.
theology.
We expect
it. But to me, this is the iron sharpens iron is a wonderful analogy. It really goes back to, you look in the Garden of Eden, and pre-sin, Adam and Eve have a perfect marriage. And then sin, they fall into sin, and they go hiding because they're naked, and they recognize it for the first time, and they're hiding, and they feel ashamed. And to me, that's what marriage is. Two people who say, I'm going to be bone of bone and flesh of flesh, but they're not going to do it perfectly, and we certainly haven't. I certainly haven't made mistakes along the way. And because that in the garden, there's this hiding, this shame, that really what happens over time in a marriage is that you do one of two things. You either shore up the shame and you just encourage shame in your partner and they do in you, or you begin to let the fig leaf down somewhat. You begin to reveal who you really are, and some of it's wonderful and some of it's kind of hard to see. But as you do, you begin to restore the Garden of Eden. You find that kind of love that you begin to be really intimate with. And one of the things that Andre has really helped me with is a sense of us connecting on an emotional level that really is almost spiritual in some ways, that I just won't go to by myself.
Yep.
But I will when we talk about things, when we talk even about our children, or we talk about our relationship or each other, that you really open a door for me that I won't open for myself, and other people won't because it's too intimate. But I can say I have been more vulnerable with you than I have with any other human being. And instead of you running out the door like, I don't want any part of him, she embraces me, and it's like the gospel lives in our marriage in a way that is just awe-inspiring to me.
Wow.
Because you see some of the worst parts of me, and rather than turn away and run, you say, I'm here and I love you. And that that's the awesome part of marriage right there. And it restores Eden just a little bit.
It's beautiful.
And a little more.
It's a beautiful way to put it.
So that's me. How about you?
So I realized that not only did I want to live with Mike, but I did not want to live without Mike. And that as we have been married, I always knew that he was this very easygoing person who had this great sense of humor. We laughed more than any other person I've ever been with. Like, he just makes me laugh. And one of the ways that he has really grown me and sharpened me is he has always valued people. Like, I was in the business world, and I kind of came from a background where it was very, you perform, and like the more money that you make, the better person you are. And I remember the day I brought home a big paycheck and was so proud of things. And Mike was like, that's great. So, what do you want to do this weekend? I was like, yeah, but do you see this? He's like, yeah, but you know what? You're great. Like, I don't really care about this other stuff.
Wow.
And it really made me.
No. Do you see that zero there? There's another zero in that check. Come on now.
And it was kind of one of those points where I recognized that he really loved me as a person.
Wow.
And I didn't have to perform. And he has always been, he has always valued people, and he has taught me how to really value people, and has really been the most wonderful encourager, and has challenged me when there have been times like the time I just mentioned about performing, where he was like, I don't think you understand. It's you.
Yeah.
It's not all this other stuff. It's you. And I am just a more whole person who is very accepted by Mike in a way that is just, it is just so beautiful. It's just hard to describe it.
Man, what I love about what both of you said is I feel like if you asked me the same question, I would have personally given both of your answers in our marriage. That I feel I've never felt more able to be all sides of myself, because we're all such multifaceted beings. But yet we learn through adolescence and teenage years and college years, young adult years, the most maybe excellent, presentable parts of ourselves, and you almost begin to hide the other parts. Maybe not consciously, but you just do, because you can realize what people like about you. But to be in that marriage where you're able to show all the parts, the good, the bad, the neither good nor bad, but just kind of weird. So I think that's the thing that I've learned about myself in being married to Maya is like, I'm just a funny, weird dude. And I don't think that's the person that I portray a lot of the time for whatever the reason. But to feel that level of acceptance and realize that they're not there just for what you can do for them. I mentioned this in a different episode, but we had just a really powerful conversation a few weeks ago where Maya told me, like, truly, like, you're my favorite person to hear preach, but preaching is my least favorite thing about you. And I was like, man, like, just the way that she put that really just hit home for me, kind of to the same thought you're sharing, which is, yeah, I mean, the paycheck's great, the preaching's great, but the thing that you do, though I appreciate it and it's valuable, it's actually my least favorite thing about you. I love you. And so I think that those are just two, I resonate deeply with what both of you said, because I feel the same.
And here's the amazing part is the years come along. There are all kinds of challenges you guys will face that you have no idea, just like we've had all kinds of challenges that we would never known are going to come. But in God's providence, those challenges, at times, even you almost, some of them can be so great, you almost let go of each other's hand. And you realize God's got us in this. It's why he said we need to make a commitment to one another. And as you go through the years, what you find is that there's this amazing thing that happens. The more adversity you face and you conquer, the closer you get. So the more hey, this is just who I am and I get to share myself, that becomes a strong foundation when 10 years from now there's some challenge that just, in y'all's fault, it's just a challenge that happens. And it's an amazing thing. And this is one of the things I didn't think, I heard couples say, I love my spouse more today than I did when we first got married. And I'm like, no, you don't. Come on. And I had this counseling professor who he would say this, and he was like 100 years old. I mean, he was so old. I'm like, come on, look at yourself in the mirror. No, you can't love each other that much. And what happened was that I realize now, it has so much to do with marriage is not just an emotional relationship. It's actually a deeply spiritual connection with someone that grows over time, that you just over the years. So I can say now, with my hand on the Bible, if we had a Bible, that I love you more now than I did when we first met and when we first got married. And it's because all the things in life, you have this sense of, we made it. We conquered this together, and we've done a lot, hopefully been a force for good in the world by God's grace and help some people along the way.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That is beautiful. And as we sort of wrap up, this has been so insightful. And just one final question of, we've been calling it sort of like a marriage hack, but really what that is if there is just if there's one practice or tool that over the 28 years that you've been married that you would want someone to come away from and maybe be able to implement that into their marriage, or maybe for the future if they plan on getting married, just what would that be, like a practice or tool that you guys have had in y'all's marriage?
Oh, I got one quick. I got to throw because you did
go
it
first.
last night.
Okay.
And it was awesome. You did it last night. You wanted to share something. Andre wanted to share something. And, I come home, I have engaged emotionally with people, And I'm like, oh, I'm tired. But I want to connect, but I'm tired. And one of the things that you did last night, this one, she's like, okay, I want to tell you this and I want to connect with you on this. 5 minutes. That's what I need. 5 minutes. We're going to talk about this. Now that's so helpful because to me, when we start having an emotional conversation, I'm not sure if it's going to go 5 minutes or an hour and 50 minutes. And it makes it hard for me to jump in. So it's so helpful when you go,
It's really good.
5 minutes. That's how much I need you to connect on this right now. And I'm all in for 5 minutes, or it was longer than 5 minutes, but it's more helpful than that. So so that was one, setting an expectation of how long she needs me to be emotionally connected.
Especially in context of when you realize that your spouse maybe they're had an especially emotionally draining day, or there's a lot of blessings in ministry. One of the maybe harder parts of ministry is kind of most of your job is being there for people spiritually, emotionally. So just realizing that in the context of your marriage and realizing your spouse needs you too, but that they've also been giving that part of themselves all day in a way that maybe other professions that have their own struggles, maybe that wouldn't be the same struggle. So keeping that in context, I think that's really good.
And it's not true 100% of the time, but generally, we've kind of jokingly said women are more emotionally sophisticated than men. You see it when, little girls up to grown women, that you all just operate with more emotional sophistication than men do. So for a lot of us men, just outpouring of emotion is more challenging. Not that we don't have them, but just more challenging. So setting an expectation really helps.
Excellent.
For that.
It's excellent.
Really great.
Plus, we're right in the middle of getting kids to bed and showers and all those things too. So it's kind of chaotic in the background, and you being able just to disconnect from that for a minute and just focus is really helpful.
Yep. That's
good.
Yeah. I think mine is going to be the 5 love languages. We were probably married for about 3 years before we did five love language and did the love languages quiz thing, which takes like 5 minutes. But it can be life-changing for your marriage because what it does is it helps you to learn, like, what is Mike's love like? How does he receive love? And how do I receive love? And one of the things that it taught us was that my love language is gifts. So I was always giving him what my love language was.
Oh, yeah.
So I would come home and be like, oh, I got you this, or I got you, and he was like, oh yeah, that's great. And I was like, yeah, but I got that for you. Don't you love it? Isn't that great? I was thinking about you, all these different things. And his love language is like words of affirmation.
Yeah.
So what he wanted to hear was me saying, you've done such a great job today, and I wasn't doing that as much. And he would tell me, oh, you did a great job. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's great. Where's my gift? And so when we learned that, it sounds like y'all may have had some similar experience here where you kind of missed each other before.
No doubt.
Yep.
And when we learned that, it really changed everything. And one of the things that he does now, just out of the blue, is he'll bring me home a Slurpee. Well, that's a gift.
What flavor? What flavor?
Probably like cherry
Yes.
or Coke.
Cherry all day.
Yeah.
A cherry
And he'll just
Slurpee.
surprise me with that. And you know what? That touches me because that's a gift.
That's sweet.
Wow.
That's the kind of spender I am. I come home because it's not just a little Slurpee. We're talking
Jumbo.
the jumbo with the big
Hey.
straw Slurpee. That's
If
the
you're trying to
love I have
impress
for
your
you.
woman on the other end of this
Jumbo
video, the jumbo, don't get her the small. She will not appreciate it. No, I think for me, one of the most beneficial but challenging parts of marriage, and I think one of the ways that it really does, the Bible talks so much about how marriage makes you more like Jesus. I think one of the ways it does that is it makes you get outside of yourself. And I think what's beautiful about the love languages is, like you said, by nature, you've functioned for X amount of years that you weren't married, primarily probably loving people the way you want to be loved. So for us, when we got married, I'm just giving you lots of compliments and putting my hand on your arm,
Physical
because those are my
touch.
two, is affirmation and physical touch. But to realize, like, the point of love is me doing what you need to
Yeah.
feel
That's
loved,
right.
not what I want to give you.
Yeah, and what's funny is I feel like God has this hilarious sense of humor where I feel like a lot of the times I've heard a lot of stories about how it's just really opposite. like
Yeah.
the two love languages.
Oh, yeah.
And so you are a big physical touch person. And what's hilarious about me is I love space. And I
Yeah.
love like my own like distance and space, not because I don't love you at all. That's not
yeah.
even
Yeah.
it whatsoever. But that's just how I've always been. And so
yeah.
for me to be like, okay, like let go of yourself and just like scooch closer and like sit closer or hold
Yes.
hands, which is totally unnatural to me.
Yes.
But that's the beautiful thing about marriage and making you more like Jesus is you do the things that are unnatural and that are not a reflex or an instinct or comfortable so that you can love someone else.
100%.
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
great.
That is so true. And coaching your spouse, kind of the idea of helping your spouse, not demanding things, but helping to remind them
Yeah.
that, hey, this is, I like my space, so can
Yeah.
I get a little bit of space here for a little while? Not you, not you. It's
Right.
just me. I just need a
Yeah.
little space. Kind of like I'll occasionally, if it's been a rigorous few days and we've had a lot going on, because physical touch is my second one, I'll come up and just grab Andrea's hand and start like touching my family.
Yes.
Come on.
I'll model it. I love it.
So it just helps, but it's of trying and the opposite, coaching is just to be a student of your spouse and to try to see what are the things that they really like the big Slurpee or whatever it is.
I love it. I think that's a practical for anyone watching right now, whether you're dating, whether you're married, whether you're not dating or married and you just want to make any relationship you have better, pay attention to the things that make that person
Yes.
come alive.
Yes.
I think it's a fair recommendation. Hey, if you've never taken the 5 love languages, take it.
Yeah.
I think it's either free or very
It is free.
inexpensive.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It'll, even if it costs $10, it'd be worth you the money, but it is free, so you should do it because it's gonna, I think, especially I'm thinking about a marriage that maybe someone's watching going, man, I remember when our marriage used to be a lot closer. I feel like right now it just feels like we're in one of those seasons, or maybe it's been a elongated season. You can't always control every factor that's led there, but you can, from wherever you are, choose to try to love your spouse in a way that's going to make them feel loved. And so I would just encourage anyone watching, but especially my heart, even right now, just feels for someone watching going, man, I want my marriage to get back to that place that I remember, like as Mike and Andrea were talking about these different seasons in their marriage, like I remember those seasons, and you want to get back there. Maybe one great starting point for anyone watching is, if you don't already know that person's love language, find it, and then find consistent. Don't just do it once and hope that repairs that. Like, make it a habit
Yeah,
that
it's
I'm
a
going to love
habit.
this
That's
person the way that they feel loved. It's really good.
I have watched, because over the years I've gotten to work with a lot of couples, and I have watched marriages shift, just go in a whole different direction following the advice you just gave. It's the practical. So like if you take Gary Chapman, Google Gary Chapman love languages, and there are a bunch of ways you can take the test for free, and it is easy. But ask your spouse then, what does that mean? If your top love language is physical touch, what does that mean? Because I assume, for example, when you first said gifts, I thought, oh no, I'm
Diamond
a pastor.
ring.
I don't have the money to keep up with this. How am I going to do this? And I was totally wrong. You didn't mean like big diamond rings and whatever. You meant just, hey, grab me one flower. Bring one flower home. Get me a big Slurpee. Just that kind of thing. It's letting your spouse tell you what does quality time mean? Well, it means we're together some, and then I get a little alone time. That's what quality time means. So it's practical ways that I have watched marriages change, because all the research out there is if you're going through a hard spell, if you'll stick it out, things do get better.
Come on.
And when they do longitudinal, these are long-term studies of couples, and they do longitudinal studies, what they find every time is, over the long haul, if you'll stick it out and you'll just try, and you stick it out, things get better. That population of people, they eventually get happier and happier in marriage. People who don't stick it out, the statistics are not good for them being happy once they separate. They are happy for a minute, and then they don't do well. And it is worth sticking in there. And God can heal anything, so it's not, if you've gone through a tough season, it's not saying, oh, well, this is irreparable. It can, but the reality is that if you'll stick it out and do some of the practical things, life can get a whole lot better.
Yeah, and I think something really important, then I'll let you wrap us up, is what you just said of let your spouse write the narrative of how they feel love and
Yeah.
receive love. Because I think that's how a lot of burnout and exhaustion happens too, when I'm maybe trying and trying and trying, but I'm trying in my way. And you're not even receiving love, so now you don't feel loved, and I am feeling exhausted because I've just been trying and doing. So it's really let your spouse fill in the blank of how they receive love and then make it a habit. I think that is great.
And if you're in a season where it's hard, stick it out and do
Yeah.
exactly that, because God can restore all things.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you
good.
both. I feel like we say this, but it really is true. Like we're kind of interviewing you all for the benefit of people watching, but we also are just for the benefit of our own
Oh,
marriage.
yeah.
So selfishly, I hope hundreds and thousands of people, I hope you're watching. If you're not though, this was just valuable for us.
Yes.
So on a personal level, thank you. On behalf of everyone watching, thank you. This has been so helpful and
Yes.
practical and encouraging. And to you watching, thank you for watching. This is our final episode of Marriage Mondays, but this is not our final episode of producing content that is gonna hopefully help deepen your faith, help encourage your soul, help practically benefit your life. I think one of the things about Christianity that I don't know, I want to say it's overlooked, is it's not just these things that we believe in an ethereal way or these primarily or exclusively spiritual realities. Like these things change your life. These things change your marriage. These things change the way you parent and lead your family and work. It changes everything. So we're going to continue to produce content that's going to hopefully shape and encourage and challenge and just ultimately make you look more like Jesus right here. If you're watching on the Forest Hill app, if you don't have the app, download the app. If you're watching this on YouTube, why don't you subscribe? We're going to continue. That's where all of our sermons live as well. That's a great place for content. If you're able to comment, like if you're on YouTube, maybe put in the comment section, what's one thing that either Mike or Andrea said that maybe stuck out to you? Also, share this. I think if you thought of somebody like this could benefit them, well, send the link, copy it, share it with somebody. I think it's really gonna make a difference, not just for you. I pray it did for you, but even beyond you. But wanted to say thank you. We love you. We'll see you hopefully this Sunday at any of our 6 campuses or online at 9 and 11. Thank you for watching Marriage Mondays, and we'll see you soon.